So today we're going to be going over how to make a cyanotype print. A cyanotype is basically a type of photography or printmaking method where you use light-sensitive chemicals that react with UV light rays to produce a cyanotype image, which is basically, instead of a black and white image, it'll be just cyan and white, which is what you can see here. So today we're going to be going over a quick little tutorial on how to make some for yourself at home. For me, I'm no expert at this. I've only been doing it for about 4 or 5 days now. First 2 days were all experimentation and I had a lot of negative results, but that's why I'm here today. I want to show you what to avoid, what to do, and how to make a cool cyanotype. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now that you have a little bit of better idea of what a cyanotype actually looks like, I want to just go over the few tools that you need to actually get started. It's quite easy to do at home, which is why I wanted to try it out myself too. So to get started, you're going to need, first and foremost, the Jacquard cyanotype like solution kit. That comes with a part A and a part B. You mix part A, which comes as like a powder, with water to the top. Make sure it's shaken up really well and then let it sit for 24 hours before you use it. You're going to do the same with type B. For me personally, I didn't want to wait the 24 hours, so I just tried it right away. And that was one of the test prints where the emulsion actually just came straight off the paper. So I'm not sure if it was the paper, the exposure time, or if it was the chemicals not being properly mixed up and sat there for 24 hours to get ready. Whatever the case may be, maybe you want to try it out yourself, maybe not. Now at least you know what could happen. So you're going to get these two mixed up. Once you have those mixed up, make sure you're always shaking them before use. Two other tools are a little bowl. Some people use just like a tray for coating their prints with beforehand, and you're going to want a paintbrush or a foam brush, some type of brush to apply it to the paper. And then the last physical thing really that you're going to need is watercolor paper, or I've seen other people use brown paper bags, just regular paper. You want something that's going to be thick and that can withstand being in water afterwards, because you need to wash your print for around 5 or so minutes, sometimes more. So you don't want anything that's just going to like break down and wither away in the water. People have also used fabric and things like that before. And then the last two things you're going to need are the sunlight, which has all your UV rays. But if it's overcast out, or if you just don't, if it's too hard to go in and out of your building to get outside to expose your prints all the time, we actually have built, you can pan over there, we've built our own UV exposure lamps, and right now it's on just to add some room light because it's dark in here, but you can also expose your screens and your cyanotypes rather underneath those just UV hot boxes, and that should take between 3 and 30 minutes. It's all just kind of an experimentation with how far away your light is, what type of light bulb you have, and things like that. So I can't really tell you what your exposure time will be. That's just all be experimentation. The final tool that you're going to need is just water, running water or distilled water at the end of the whole entire process. And that's what's just going to be your developing agent in this process. It's going to turn your light sensitive chemicals basically off and start developing your image once you're done. One thing that I forgot to mention, equipment wise, is to have a piece of glass and or just a contact printing frame, which basically ensures that your negative or your botanical or whatever it is that you're printing with is flat and pressed, fully against the cyanotype paper, because you don't want it to have any space in between, because then you're basically printing the shadow instead of printing what your actual negative is, which is going to give you a much blurrier, sometimes not even like readable image. So today we are going to be using a few different things to print with. You can use different types of transparency papers. You could use actual film negatives, which is what I did for this one right here, which came out a tad bit blurry, but you can see some of the detail in some of the prints. For me, I need to get better contact with the actual piece of paper while I'm exposing the screen. We're gonna experiment with a little bit outside, is just finding some botanicals like leaves, flowers. All right, so the next step is actually coating your paper, and what you're gonna wanna do is, because the chemicals, once they mix to each other, they only last for about 2 to 4 hours or so. So what I'm gonna do is mix an even portion of part A and part B into my little mixing cup. That was a little sloppy, but you're gonna mix an even part of B and A. Then you're just gonna stir up your chemicals. Make sure they're nice and evenly mixed. And the goal is to have as even as possible, which is why I use the caps of the containers. There's a few line markings on them, and if you get it up to the same line marker on each one, you should have a pretty good time. All right, so now that the chemicals are mixed up, this might be not enough, but let's just go ahead and start with the smaller ones. Make sure you're in subdued light, slightly dark room, and go ahead and wet the top of the brush, but you don't want it to be too like gunked up on there, just a little amount to start. And just get a nice even coat all the way across. You can fill the paper, you can leave the edges kind of like blank. Some people like to have more of that painterly look. It just all depends on what you want. And be sure that you're going vertically and horizontally. And once you're finally finished with it, there's no bubbles, there's no drip marks, anything like that. You want it to be as even as possible, or else you will see it in the final print. Now that this is all done, these should be kind of a yellowish color right now while it's still in the dark room. You don't, because obviously once it hits the sun, the goal is to get it to brighten up. It'll be a greenish color, and then after that, it is gonna turn into blue once you wash it. You're gonna wanna turn the fan on just to let them dry off. This will take about 5 or 10 minutes, maybe longer if you don't have a fan. To actually get started, let's just put down, let's just start with some of these smaller ones to get a variety of options. All right, so I think this looks good right now. And let's just go ahead and take it outside, set up the timer, probably go for 10 minutes because it's pretty bright outside, and fingers crossed that it works. Today is definitely really bright out, so hopefully this won't take too long. I'm gonna set a timer. Usually just set my stopwatch so I can just keep an eye on it. Probably gonna go for 5 minutes or so because, no, I'll probably go for 10 minutes because overexposure is definitely better than underexposure. You're gonna wanna use cold water too. If you have hydrogen peroxide, like I said, that's a lot better. And this one looks like it's coming out, although it is a little bit blotchy in some areas. As you can see, this one's starting to come out. This one's kind of cool, actually. And just keep agitating it a little bit. You'll see the color of the water start to change. Maybe get a little yellow or green, so just keep changing the water every once in a while. And these will get bold, like way more bold as the day goes on. I think it takes 24 hours to get fully like what the image will look like finalized. Let's do these other ones. All right, so you always have to remember to dry out your prints as well. Once you're done with the 5-minute or so wash, once the water runs clear, then you're gonna just hang them dry. Over the course of the next 24 hours, it's gonna become a lot more of a bold cyan color, which is when you'd wanna, digitize or scan it after that. For me, because the paper will wrinkle up once it's dried out, I usually like to get all my prints stacked up on top of each other. I'll put a clean piece of just copy paper or something like that on top, and then a few books to just weigh everything down and make everything nice and smooth and flat again. This way, you're not dealing with just all shriveled up like wrinkled prints when you go and try and scan everything in or digitize it however you do. So that's just one thing to keep in mind as well. Prints themselves, because I feel like I didn't actually explain the exposure times and things like that. In the beginning, I said you could do anywhere from 3 to 30-minute exposures, and obviously it depends on the lighting and things like that. But just to give you a better idea of what you can make and what you'll want to make just off of look, I want to just go through each of the exposure times and also what the negative was. So for these two right here, these were exposed for 10 minutes a piece, and they were this was a negative that I blew up on a transparency paper, and that's the same with that photo. As you can see, the results were pretty bad. You can't really tell the images at all, especially for that one. This, you would need a much longer exposure for both of these, because I think the black point is not high enough. Therefore, you're not gonna get as deep of an exposure. If you left this out for hours, you might get something, but nobody wants to do that. Let's look at the next one. Okay, so just off what I have offhand, these for medium format negatives, which were black and white film, is what produced these prints, which were exposed for 10 minutes as well. And I think you definitely can see, just based like comparing the two, you get an image versus you don't really get much of an image. You'd have to expose this a lot longer, whereas the same 10-minute exposure got me brighter images that really, you can tell what they are. So just off of preference, I would rather continue doing it with medium format negatives, because like the actual raw negative, because it just has a better tonal range for printing and enlarging to other things. This one right here was with the botanicals that you saw outside. I really like the way it looks. I think this was for 10 minutes as well. And this one for me looks like, like kind of abstract, a little like flowers and a little like hummingbirds. I like this one a lot. So for this, which was my favorite print of the day, this was actually just this thing right here, the negative sheet put over top of it. I didn't even take it out of the negative sleeve. I just wanted to see if it would work. And I think up close you can see maybe that the negative sleeve might be causing a little bit of detail change, but all in all, you get an idea of what the photos are, and I like that look actually. So I would probably do this again in the future. This one here was from a few days ago, as you can see, and although the exposure wasn't, or the print, emulsion wasn't perfect, in these two photos you can actually see some detail, and I don't know, I like the way that looks. So I think I'll definitely continue doing these contact sheet type prints. I really like the look of that. And these two were actually for 15 minutes of exposure, 15, maybe even 16 or 17 minutes. But these ones were really, I think they came out the best. This one could have been a little bit better, but all in all, this one came out the best, and that 15 minutes of bright daylight really helped out. So all in all, I would say 10 to 15 minutes for me. 10 works, but I would just stick with 15 or more from now on, because I know that the image is going to come out a lot better than if I just get lazy and try and cut corners and go a little bit shorter than that. So I'll usually stick with 15 or more. And I think out of everything, we got a few good results, a few bad results. I definitely learned a lot, and I hope you were able to learn a lot throughout the process as well. For me, it's a really fun experience, just the whole process of it. I'm used to developing photos in a bucket and it taking, 30 minutes or 40 minutes sitting in a bucket, and then most of the time is spent scanning the images. So for me, this is kind of a different process, more so like screen printing almost, but I really enjoy it, and I hope you do too. I hope everybody out there tries it. It's fun, even for if you're just, family and you're looking to do something fun with your kids or something like that. The same company actually sells pre-treated paper, so you can just go to the store, pick up the paper that's already has the chemical on it, and just put your own designs on it and things like that. So definitely check it out if you've never tried cyanotype printing. It's a lot of fun. And if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, if you have any critique even, make sure to leave it down below in the comments, because I want to hear your thoughts and opinions. But other than that, I hope you have a good day, and peace out.